Hi, it's Ileana at Awakening Cosmic Reality Show, and today I have Randy Veitenheimer with me. Randy has been on Cosmic Disclosure at Gaia. He is an energy worker and he deals with physics. So today we are going to be asking Randy a couple of interesting questions about time travel, quantum physics, and source field generators. So those are the four questions that I have for Randy. Hi, Randy. How are you?
I'm doing great. Anyway, I'm glad to see you. Glad to talk to you,
I'm
and
glad.
we'll find out what's going on.
Yeah. How originally I contacted you is an ET sent me a bunch of weird questions about quantum physics and stuff.
Who
So
is this? Who did?
an ET named Solar. Remember those
Oh,
questions,
okay,
those weird equations? So this is how it
R-
started me
okay,
contacting you.
right.
Just and these other questions just originated from that experience, I guess. And because I'm interested in time travel, and I've watched some of your interesting episodes on Cosmic Disclosure where you discuss some time travel stuff. So I thought I'd ask you a few questions. These are pre-approved
Yes,
already.
yes,
So can I start off with question one?
yes, definitely.
How would time travel going back in the past, near future, or the far future, or concurrent timelines be possible through quantum leap time dilation?
So we have to break it down.
Yes.
So the basic problem is everybody uses the word time and really have no concept of what it is. so So I say that because depending on kind of like who you are and where you've been in life, you may have a different concept of time, right? And so uh, there's several issues there, but one of the things I did was many years ago I was looking at all this, and the idea came to me to what I call aspect time and space. Like we say time and everybody supposedly knows what it is, and we say space and same thing. So what I came up with was that space existed with 8 or 9 aspects, okay, and time had about 19. And so by breaking it into aspects, it's kind of like describing somebody. You describe time and everybody got, their lips move but nothing comes out. So we look at it and say, well, if there's aspects to it, it's like saying somebody's tall or short or weighs something, or what color hair or whatever. And breaking it down, that was kind of like step one. And then I studied a lot with Dr. David Hawkins, and one day we were talking about how you go from here to there, and you don't go through the same time sequence that everybody else does. And I've described that on one of the videos where I left Oklahoma City and drove to Shreveport, and I got there in 4 hours driving. And it's a 400-mile drive, and I didn't speed. So, and when I came back, I did the regular thing, and it took about 8 hours, which is normal. But during those 4 hours, I was not traveling through sequential dimensions like everybody else does. I got rid of those, okay, or got rid of some of them. And so what I'm describing is actually kind of a technique. And if we think about moving through 8 spatial dimensions in our reality, we're subject to a certain timeline of 60 miles an hour or 500 in an airplane or whatever. But if you start eliminating some of the spaces you have to go through, then basically you're time traveling. One of my physicist friends, when I told him what I'd done, he said, well, you time traveled. And I go, how did I time travel? He said, well, you would have got there at 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning, and you got there at 11 o'clock at night, 4 hours later. So that is a form of time travel, right? And so that particular form of it, I went ahead and developed everything up as far as a technique. And I taught my physicist friend and several other people. And, it's a fascinating thing because it basically violates all the laws of physics. And then I always go, which laws of physics and which physics, because I have about 15 of them I deal in, and other people don't. And I did do it with an airplane once, and we arrived about 45 minutes early, and the pilots couldn't explain it. There was no tailwind. And I didn't do it anymore after that because we had to sit on the tarmac. We didn't have an opening to get there. They're very precise about that. So anyway, the concept came to me when I was 13. There was a thing called Telstar, Bell Labs. And they were talking about how the amount of information you can transmit over a telephone line was kind of like restricted. And they were talking about taking out parts of your conversation and still being able to hear my voice. And they called it voice compression. And so I took that idea from 13 or 14. I was heavily involved in laser physics at that time, and had built the third laser in the United States. Only mine was battery powered and portable. So, but I switched over to that because I started looking at, well, like if you had spatial compression of sound, why couldn't you do spatial compression of light? And then, well, now we get into laser physics, and then I kept going and saying, well, what about space itself? And that's what got me on to being able to cancel out or eliminate or whatever. Now, you do all this mentally, and that's why the restriction of science, and we can get into the quantum physics and quantum computers aspects of this, but they can't comprehend how you would do that. And I go, well, just because you can't comprehend it doesn't mean I can't do it, okay? So one of the things I did, I advanced to a point of writing out with a couple of mathematicians an algorithm that maybe would allow us to do that. Kind of like put the proverbial little black box on your dashboard and away you go. I've been able to get about 35% compression. Another validation that I had a friend out in Sedona and was driving back to Oklahoma, and she didn't believe any of it, but I said, well, how many miles to the gallon or how much miles to a tank of gas? And she said it gets exactly like 300 or something because she knew the car and everything. So when we got to Albuquerque a couple hundred miles later, she still had 5/8 of a tank of gas. And so again, the laws of physics depends on which laws you want to play with, right? And which ones you want to ignore. And we've done that. We've done that with Newtonian physics, and then we went to Einsteinian physics, and now we're at quantum physics, and you pretty well people get all excited, but what about subquantum physics, right? And they go, what? so this gets into the whole concept about space is aspected, time is aspected, and what that means is that we can play with it, we can interact with it much more than just the thing as a whole. It's kind of like you take one part of it. And we know that because like in high intensity emotions and events like that, time slows down, right? And so the overall experience of it is much different maybe than what it is. As near as I've been able to tell, if you ever do any weaving, right, or know about cloth, they have wolf and, I guess that right, warp and weave. There we go.
Yeah, I've done crocheting.
Yeah, okay, warp and weave. And as near as I can tell, time is the weave of the whole universe, right? So it's an inherent structure is the best I've been able to come up with, right? And so it's to some degree experiential, but again, people don't take the time to explore it. And even more, they don't take the time to play with it. And so if somebody said, well, how do you come up with all this stuff? I go, start playing with time, start stretching it out, start compressing it, start making it go backwards or forwards. And we do that with our mind, but not to the degree that maybe somebody trained, like the training I've had to be able to do that. Otherwise, all you can do is talk about it. So, and if we go to any off-world civilizations or anything like that, they have to have come up with some way to play with that, and in the same way that I do. Now, I do it without benefit of devices, but I've worked on some, and that's one of those things that it's hard to do by yourself, and it does take a lot of money, right? Always wondered if you build a spaceship somewhere other than here, if it takes as much money to build it as we spend,
Or a jump gateway portal system.
Yeah. Now, portal system gets into this whole concept, this whole conversation. I have experienced some. You said you had too. Is that right?
Yeah. It's for me, I was part of the secret space program going to Mars bases and Moon, and how they call it is quantum leap time dilation time travel, where they can basically manipulate concurrent timelines. When you're on Earth, you're taken off planet and dropped off to Mars through this time dilation portal device, or just manipulation of energy. It seems like only you were sleeping at 2 a.m., maybe 5 hours passed on Earth and a year passed on Mars somehow.
Right.
So,
okay. So one of the things that comes into play is how many timelines are you concurrent with right now?
Right now, I'm with one, but with Mars, it was two, the Earth timeline and the Mars timeline.
Okay. Well, as near as I can tell, basically everybody on the planet is involved in 3 or 4 minimum. And it's kind of like dimensionality. 20 years ago, I went to one of those science conferences, and somebody stood up and goes, "There's 11 dimensions." And so I go, "Can't you count any higher?"
Oh, there's more than 11.
Yeah. So if we go to in-dimensional space, it's like there's a lot more going on. But apparently our science can only handle so much of it. And so they're quite content to deal with trying to explain 11-dimensional space and ignoring what I call in-dimensional space, infinite number of dimensions. But it just gets into like, if you have a matrix, a time matrix, like say of 19 aspects, and then we have the reciprocal of it too, or reverse time. And just like we have the reciprocal of space, it's you take all those together, and it's like shuffling a deck of cards. You get a different hand, and you also get another way to interact. And now your perception ability and intellect has to be able to act in that manner or in that set of timelines. And we know all this at a very basic level, but to play with it without benefit of machines and stuff requires a pretty advanced training.
Yeah, and understanding of energy,
right,
and morphic fields and sequence fields and dimensional levels.
Right, exactly. So when you do portals, like there's physical portals on the Earth. I've been played with a couple of them. That's what I call all this, and you don't have the language. I mean, most people. I was fascinated. I spent, I don't know, a half hour going in and out of this one just for entertainment value. I was laughing the whole time because of it literally, your perceptions were different. The feeling was different. The knowledge was different. The time was, everything was different. And this is all in a space of about 20 feet. I would walk 12 paces one direction, and during that 12 paces, I don't know where I was. As soon as I popped out the other side, I was back to where I kind of like started. And in the middle of it, directions were different. The air was different. It's just an odd thing. And of course, when we have novel experiences, we may not have the language to accompany it or the integration with consciousness go with that. And so anyway, there's some basic problems with it. The classic one, I like to study quantum physics and this, that, and the other. I went to a D wave or D5 wave presentation on quantum computing. And I tried to explain to guys, you don't have a quantum computer, right? And of course, they're marketing and selling to the government, everybody. But until a computer can access the field, like just like we were saying about the morphic field, the field contains all the information. And until that computer accesses the field rather than go through some arithmetic or whatever program, compiling or otherwise, it is not a quantum computer because we access the quantum information field. And we know that because people like Tesla and Einstein and others said that they don't know where that came from, whatever information or things they developed, because it came to them. And I explained to a CEO several years ago, I said, I've been working on a GPS for the field. In other words, if you want to know how to build a portal, you would go to where that information exists because it already exists. It's kind of like you didn't invent anything or come up with some new idea that wasn't already present. And it has a spatial coordinate or a time-space coordinate or space-time, whichever language you want to use. So all these things come into play, and if you get them all in your head and wrestle with them a while, you'll come up with that maybe I'm not as fixed in this reality or matrix as I was before I started playing with all this.
Yeah, I mean, I studied Wicca light magic, and I had been studying different symbols that have to do with spatial coordinates, and I psychically put it together in some sort of an image, and I accidentally activated a portal in my closet at my old house because it had a vortex beside the beach. And I would end up going to places at night to different planets, and I had beings coming in and out of that thing for about 10 years in my closet. And then I started having unpleasant things also come in, not just the pleasant.
Of course.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, those instructions are hanging on my wall, and I had to close it. I mean, I still have them on my wall. It's just not active anymore, and I moved.
Right.
So, and I don't have anything coming in and going.
Okay, good. Because one of to get into what you were just talking about, we have an electromagnetic field. You can call it an aura. I don't care what you call it, but let's say I teach 9 foot as a minimum, but we can go out to hundreds or thousands if we want to. And but the idea is you can knock holes in it. Okay. If you knock a hole in your auric field or electromagnetic field, you've created a portal. And if you don't know what comes in, I can tell you, they're called nightmares, they're called demons, entities, spirit attachments, ghosts, aliens, ET. I mean, we can go on forever with that language. And so that's why I say this is part of our nature. It's not like you got to go do an acid trip or anything to come up with it, right? Anybody that's had a high fever, anybody that's gone starvation, anybody, all mystical experiences in some way create those portals in our own consciousness, our own electromagnetic field. So,
yeah, I was just doing light magic and playing around with symbols and dragon symbols and portal symbols. And I just, I guess, put a nice little, concocted some formula that had the correct symbols to open this, because the vortex was already there. You just opened up a portal space through the vortex. And I mean, people like, prove it. It's in your closet. You can see it. Well, no, you can't really. It's energetic. Some people see it. Some people don't. It's a portal. It's an energy field.
Right.
I didn't. I saw it like water, like blue water, and I heard a whooshing sound. And it opened up more so at night because the veil is thinner at night. So it's just very convenient for things to come and go.
Yeah, the noise dies down, and that's another aspect of how do you do these things, right? So people talk about like building a portal device. All you have to do is either you play with the opposites. You play with an electromagnetic field generated one way, and you apply one in a different direction at a different angle. Is the easiest way to express it. And if you play with the power settings on that, you can literally cause things to be here or be somewhere else. And just so you know, an aspect of our consciousness is that we can place it other places in the universe. We can place it on a person or a place or a thing, and it actually has a weight to it or a pressure to it. And so these are aspects of what I call projective consciousness, and it's one of those martial arts I teach, number 6 to be exact. So.
Yeah, well, as a Native American taught shamanic practitioner, I was taught you could project anything anywhere you want. You could play with time, timelines, you could go anywhere you want, as long as your mind is calibrated to the location, 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 and intent, intent, intent. So then
I was raised, I'm Native American, I was raised on the Navajo reservation for a while. And I tell people, if you think this is reality, go out into Arizona or New Mexico. There's places out there, and that reality is not this one, right? Mm-hmm. The reality of being on the coast or big cities, I'm telling you, there is a different reality, different timelines, all kinds of things going on, and again, if you're not aware of them or perceptive of them, then you just think you're in the desert. Mm-hmm. And like I said, there's more going on out there than you can imagine, because I think that there's less space and less time out there, so things can kind of come into that tesseract of realities, much easier. And boy, there's no telling what you see, and I'm sure you've had experiences out there, but I certainly have. And they don't correspond to what we consider reality or regular physics, right? Physics fails when it comes to this, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I wanted to come up with a new term, and I called it paraphysics, kind of like parapsychology or whatever, because it is something totally different than whatever science they want to use to define it.
Yeah. Because that E.T. Solar told me it's all about morphic field, source field, and with those little equations you can build anything. But when I sent you those equations, you said, where are the concrete formulas that we need in physical reality to build whatever he suggests we build? It's like,
well, it's kind of like what you did with the symbols. He may have provided the symbols, but it's kind of like you got a little owner's manual.
No, that's and that's
that would help.
Yeah, those ETs are quite cryptic sometimes. They just, here you go, you figure it out.
Okay, I have a comment about that. It involves crop circles. All right, there's all these symbols. It's like, couldn't you print out some letters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that asking too much? Because if we're dealing with an advanced consciousness that wants to deal in symbols, well, that's where we started at. If you go to Sumerian and Egyptian, and of course, like Native American, when we talk to animals, we talk in symbols. We talk in images. So it's an old language. I understand it, but it's like reading Egyptian hieroglyphics right now. I would have a difficult time with them until I became familiar with them. So,
well, I mean, I have an example of symbols and images. I have a bit of a raccoon family because I'm at the beach in the forest. So yesterday, one baby raccoon came up, and I had a date that I was going to feed him, and he's like telepathically telling me, no, I want a cashew. You give me a cashew. So I went and gave him a cashew, and he ate a cashew. So he's like, no, not a date. I don't want this thing that looks like a fig. I want this thing that looks sort of like a peanut, but it's a cashew.
Right.
And I can hear it I heard him speak through words and images. I'm like, okay, well, you want this, I'll give you this.
Right. Yeah. I tell people one of the techniques or whatever I teach is to listen. And so everything speaks. The trees speak, the ground, the animals, and you can learn to speak to them. And I tell people they speak English. I mean, they will communicate in English words. And I've demonstrated that with horses and stuff. And it makes everybody crazy because they just because they can't do it. And I always go, but have you tried? Have you actually worked at it? Because that becomes how you become proficient.
Mm-hmm.
And if you work at it, it means that you're open to it too. So
I definitely work with it. My cat had constipation, and I did energy healing on her because I noticed she had some inflammation in her stomach. We went to do the expensive ultrasound and it proved it, yeah. But so I did a little bit too much energy healing, and instead of constipation, I got diarrhea from the
right.
cat. I'm like, oops, I
Yeah.
overdid it. So for 3 days,
Yeah.
she gave me the stink eye because I applied a little too much energy on a cat. It's not the same as a human who just soaks in the healing.
Right.
So it's like,
energy medicine is very much about don't overamp somebody is the language, right? They'll kind of bounce around for a while.
Yeah, well, I mean, I overdid it with the cat every day, 5 minutes of it, of healing, but it was a little too much for 3 days, and the results were what the results were. So, and she's like, you can do 2 minutes on me next time instead of 5, and then I'll go, but I won't go with diarrhea. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that before?
Right.
And she's like, well, you had to learn your lesson, didn't you? Bigger human is a human. Smaller creature that is furry like me, you have to apply less. You have to learn that lesson. As a healer, I'm like, okay, well, thank you. Lesson learned, moving on.
Right.
So it's like you said, everything talks, everything whispers, it's all energy.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you just gotta know the right equation. And with solar, it's honestly, it kind of makes me upset that I don't understand his equation and that others don't. But I left it alone because it's not going anywhere at this point. So.
Well, always ask for clarification. Just tell them you're having a hard time and see if you can get some additional. Because I've seen some equations out of India from thousands of years ago, and they appear to be way more advanced equations than what we're dealing with. And how you tell is they're so simple. so there you go. Right.
Yeah. Well, when I asked for clarity, he's like, "It's all in those equations. Go figure it out." And I'm like, I don't have. I may be a smart person, but I'm not into those letters and numbers. So whatever you have, give me something. He's like, "Nope. Go figure it out. Fine, whatever."
Oh well, that's just mean. It's like giving you a puzzle that's with no instructions,
Well, I get those all the time from things in the universe. I'm used to it. I'm like, okay, well, you explained what it is, at least what the device does. So it's a source field generator, or it could be built into a jump-way gateway portal.
Right.
So it's like, that's the end result.
Yeah. And was that your second question about source field generators, or?
No, that's question number 4.
3. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Question number 2 is, how would you build a jump gateway portal platform with physical devices?
Well, that's what they did with the Philadelphia experiment. Okay. They charged up with capacitors all over the decks. And then the thing about when you go into high voltage energy, it's you start twisting and warping space and time. I mean, it's kind of like the government knows this. They've known it for a long time. And but for the average individual, it would take a lot of money and a lot of equipment. Can you miniaturize it? Yeah, that's what I always, every time I think about this stuff, I'm always looking at bringing it down to a compact size. And anytime you manipulate any physics, like I said, I got about 15 of them, you have, the potential for energy is there. It's there in each form of physics. We talk about atomic physics, atomic bombs, and we talk about subatomic physics, molecular physics, that's dynamite. I mean, everything has potential energy in it. And so same thing's true with each of these physics. So it's not hard. I mean, I was up in Alaska one day with another physicist friend, and we sat down. I go, okay, let's figure out this anti-gravity thing. Okay, we set up an electromagnetic field, and then we turn around and oppose it at a certain angle with another one. And in that space, there doesn't exist gravity. Okay, and so when I was talking earlier about time being the weave of the universe, been there since day one, then gravity might be the warp of that fabric. They talk about space-time fabric and the distortion of it. And so to me, these are the words and images I use to determine what that is. And of course, once I have that, then I can play with it. Okay. So depending on how much voltage you run through those, and that's what Tesla came up with, and the people that did the Philadelphia experiment, is that you can create all kinds of things going on. You can make things disappear, definitely, right? And that's why 3-dimensional space or 11-dimensional space doesn't let you go far enough to be able to accommodate what's going on, okay? So it's possible to build those. I have worked on 2 or 3 different zero-point energy devices, and they work. And we're not the only ones. I mean, I've worked one person about 11 years now. We have one that works. Nobody believes it. Everybody comes in and puts it down and says it doesn't work. And we've got a working model sitting in front of them. And so we turned around and went ahead and started miniaturizing it, bringing it down to a scalable size that would allow it to go into a refrigerator or go into a small power plant or something. And the same thing, we're getting 30, 70% efficiency gains. And like I said, people say it doesn't work. That's not true. It's that nobody wants it to work. Okay.
Well,
and
it does work.
Nobody that has money, I'll put it that way. Right?
Well, it's quite interesting. The ET told me that Emory Smith built a source field generator. That's how he termed it, solar.
Yeah, and that's true. That I worked with him on that, and then I have another friend, Jim, and he's built one, and I've seen 2 or 3 others over the years, but they go nowhere. The science establishment, the government, whoever wants no part of it, right? Because it completely negates every other previous form of energy generation. I mean, like we plugged in one, powered it up, and then it's pulling enough energy from the field to run forever on its own. It's not plugged in anymore, and it's still running. And they're like, well, that's impossible. And we go, okay.
Oh, it's possible.
Oh, yeah, very definitely.
Half of the Mars bases run on source field generators.
Yeah, that's easy. Once you power one up, you literally have as much as you want or much as you can handle. And like I said, we've demonstrated that. But people talk about like, well, how come it's not available? Well, I can tell you there's millions of dollars been spent on each of those devices to be able to get there, because we had to literally create our own materials and to stop the feedback and the generators. And that's not cheap. And then we had to manufacture all the pieces because they're not standard. And so your prototypes are expensive as everything. But then one of the other things I did, I built large industrial plants for many years. And I've built nuclear and coal and gas-fired plants. I mean, all kinds of stuff. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So for every person out there that goes, well, we need that or we should do that, if you don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to manufacture it, you're not going to get it. So everybody says, well, just give it away. And it's like, no, you can't do it unless you go ahead and spend the money to develop those facilities. And you might be able to manifest a rose or something, but I don't know about manifesting a whole freaking manufacturing plant at $1 billion, because that's basically what it'd take to get widespread distribution of it. So there you go on that one.
Yeah, I had a manifestation, a client who I was teaching manifestation, and they asked, well, can I manifest a holographic medical pod that runs on 0 point technology and plasma in order to heal all my diseases? I'm like, yeah, they have those on Mars and maybe in the special ops program somewhere on Earth in the dumb spaces and research labs, but you don't have all the ingredients to build that. It's not publicly available. So how are you going to manifest something that's not available to you?
Right. Yeah, because those are easy as far as the technology is already there to build what you just described. I mean, it's not like science fiction. Okay. It's a science reality. Okay. And so we'll call it SBR, science-based reality. And but it's really the reverse of it. We can build it, and the reality becomes the science, not the other way around.
Yeah.
See, we have an inversion. We have science, and then we build something. And no, you build it and then work out the science of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, and people ask me, do you have the schematics to build that? I'm like, I was the end user on Mars, just using it to heal others. I was not allowed to even use it on myself. So I just know how it works and the parts, but I don't know how to build it, and that's on purpose.
Right.
So I don't have access to the schematics and the build. All I have is a memory of what the wonderful thing does.
Right. Yeah, because if you get into, like I said, other forms of physics, there's all kinds of things possible. Right? Sound physics, photon physics. I mean, like I said, I've got a couple of dozen of them I work in.
Quantum teleportation probably is very possible.
Okay, that's what I call translation physics, and basically it's when we started what I was describing. We don't move from some space to another space like in incremental movements, which is what 3D space is. We move inches and then feet and then miles or whatever, yards, miles on. And translational space, we go from here to here. That's the language. So in our language, three-dimensional space will go from here to there. But in quantum teleportation, we go from here to here. So the space is the same. And in time, we say now is then and then is now. And so both of those little comments allow you to deal with what might be foreign to your own mind as far as how you've been educated or trained, right? So
yeah, my education is library technician, research information, prove it, give me the facts, give me the science, give me the equation. And my energy healing and the shamanism and the shamanic teachings, magic, energy, crystals, you throw all of that out the window and you try and play with energy until you get the results that you want.
Yes. That's why the mind is the instrument. It's the portal. It's the machine, and just like that, I had a group of scientists, doctors one time, and I go, "Tell me the total amount of energy required to accreate 8 pounds and 6 ounces." And they went blank, and I said, "No, come on, tell me. Y'all all scientists, figure out the equation, right? I want to know how much energy it takes to create that much matter in one spot." And they go, "Why?" And I go, "Because I'm describing a baby." So we all have the experience of it, one side or the other, of that happening, okay? But they conveniently skip over that, okay? Because the function of that creation is beyond their science. So they ignore it, right? Well, if you're going to ignore that, then you have to ignore the fact that you can create a 0 point energy machine, right? That's it.
Well, the
But it doesn't
holographic,
mean it can't be done.
oh, it can be done. The holographic
Yeah.
medical pod somehow takes you
Yeah.
through zero field
Right.
energy to somehow when your body is at a younger age or healthier stage, takes that quantum information, morphic field, source field, and overlays it on the body
Right.
to regenerate what's damaged in the here and now from the zero
Right.
point. And you,
That's it. I practice energy medicine. I work on people, and that's exactly what I do.
I
Okay.
do that
I can take
naturally.
a prior reference point and make it now. Remember, then is now, now is then.
Mhm,
Here is here is here. And
mhm.
so we manipulate those and get fantastic results. I had a client yesterday. She'd been to 39 doctors, and they hadn't been able to diagnose or fix her stomach issues. And so energetically shift a few things, and poof, it's gone.
Yeah,
That made me laugh. She was excited.
yeah, I was working on a client and stomach female issues yesterday as well, and I was energetically correcting and
Right.
rebalancing what's out of alignment. And I mean, the holographic, you can do it through technology with those holographic medical pods. You can just do it through energy work, like what you
Right.
and I do. There's so many ways of activating the source field and just going in and fixing bones. I mean, I've had raccoons from car accidents come in and just they're hobbling, the leg is broken. So I energetically go in, create laser energy, reset the bone, regrow the skin, cauterize the blood, clean it up. So 2 days later, he can walk on his paw again. I couldn't regrow the tail, unfortunately. That would
That's
require
okay.
too much energy, but I haven't learned how to regrow limbs yet energetically. I wish.
Well, the form is still there. It's kind of like I use reference points like your DNA reaches completion at around 18, 19 years old.
Agreed.
So the dynamic engine of your DNA reaches a complete state somewhere between 18, 19 and a half years old. And once you hit that complete state, that's a fixed point. Okay, kind of like conception's a fixed point, birth is a fixed point, and at 18, 19. And if we have those three coordinates, now we can manipulate all kinds of things in reference to a human being.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the pattern of you being 18 still exists.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if necessary, we can pick another point in time where you existed before whatever problem you're having, and we can bring that forward. And so, in a way, it's not an overlay, but a replacement, although I do overlays too. That's an interesting story. I had a 5-year-old that was, they said she was going to die because her liver was non-functioning. And so her mother came to me, and I said, well, do you mind if I attach her, right, to your information field for liver function? And she goes, no. And I go, okay. Right. So rather than operating on our own information field, which was deficient because of a genetic anomaly, substituted her mother's information field for function of the liver. And they said she would die in a year or two. And I saw her at 13. I saw her at her graduation from high school. I saw her at graduated from college. And of course, the doctors can't explain that because I go, well, just do an overlay or substitution, right?
Oh, so the mother said no to
No,
using,
she said yes.
She said
Yeah.
yes. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
misunderstood.
So we think about that. It's just another physics that we operate on where that is not only possible but potential, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess I need more to go into the source field a bit more to learn how to regrow a tail. I mean, I can heal a bone and cauterize the blood and regrow skin, but a tail is a little beyond my understanding again right
well,
now.
like I said, the pattern is already there.
Mm-hmm.
The spatial imprint it already exists. And the idea would be to accreate it back into existence, right? And the reason we say accreate it because people get excited about what we do, but they'd really get excited if we do it instantly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, and I had a client whose back I was working on, and the tailbone kept saying, I want the vestigial tail back. I want it back now. I'm like, no, I'm not regrowing your vestigial tail. Get it.
right, exactly.
It's primordial. I'm not, I mean, the tailbone was talking to me. I'm like, no, I'm not growing your tailbone back. And I was having this conversation out loud, and the client was giggling. It was so funny to the person because I was working on their
I will
back.
tell you that residual tailbone doesn't exist as a physicality for most people, but it does exist. Remember, like the phantom limb or the phantom tail after it's been broke or cut off. It's like it still exists, and you can interact with it. I gave an exercise one time in a yoga class for that, and people were like shocked at how they actually had a sensation of it, right? They had a sensation of having that tail out behind them or whatever. And freaks people out.
Well, I mean, I had a first time ever conversation with a tailbone wanting to be regrown. No, I'm like, no, you're not, you don't need that right now. I'm healing the person's back. Go away. Not growing you a tailbone.
Right.
Bye-bye wishbone. So
yeah, you can get in some weird conversation with body parts is what I call it.
Oh, I do. I've had some pretty interesting people's things talking, and the stories are, people's organs can tell you what the person did yesterday or 5 years ago.
Oh yeah,
or 20 years ago.
Yeah, cellular memory. And cellular memory, fascia memory, bone memory, these are all things that I was taught learning all this stuff. So, and it just depends on what the person wants to learn. But this is old information. I'm not inventing it, right? So,
no. Everything talks. Everything has vibration, source field, energy. You just tap into it, and you can learn anything you want.
Right.
Because
back to that equation of accreating those 8.6 pounds. You take 2 cells and put them together, and somehow that creates a portal, right? And through that comes enough energy to accreate 8.6 pounds or whatever. And until I find a scientist that can explain that whole process through mathematics, I will tend to disbelieve whatever they want to tell me.
And it's like, again, everything is in source field, and that brings us to question 4. How do you build a source field generator, and what types of applications and functions can it do?
Oh, well, we built one. A couple partners I've been working on, and for 11 years now. And like I say, funding is a real issue. And so we had a Japanese corporation. They own, I don't know, 7,000 7-Elevens or something in Japan. And we said, what if we cut your electric bill for all your compressors on your refrigerators by 30%? So they come flying over here, and we went through it. And at 30%, they were just shocked. And we go, well, what if we converted your fishing fleets to electric motors and did the same thing, right? And, 30% efficiency. And they just couldn't get their heads wrapped around it, right? I mean, literally, they couldn't believe it, even though we had an operating model in front of them. So then we had somebody came to us, and they have a resort on an island. And so we said, so what's up? And they said, well, we burn between $3.5 and $4.5 million worth of diesel every year for our generators. And we go, okay. And so we have built and hopefully, let's see, about next June, we're going to install a unit about the size of an outhouse. And we estimate their diesel usage will be cut down to under a million gallons. So that's like, I don't know, 70% efficiency improvement on their generators. And all we're doing is applying another device, linking it in, putting it in sequence with them. And here we go. Now, people say, well, that's a good application. We could put those all over where we have remote areas that don't have energy. And so then you look at every machine that uses it. I called Tesla up about 4 or 5 years ago and go, look, you know, I could increase the efficiency of those batteries running through your car by between 30 and 35% initial. And they said they weren't interested. Now, if you have that technology, why wouldn't you be interested in it? And then we look at all these others and they're trying to get ahead of Tesla, and it's like, call me.
Oh,
you know?
and
So
what are the parts of building a source field generator?
okay, well, just think about a regular generator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know, an alternator in the car. Just go look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it first occurred to me was back in the 70s. They were talking about high power lines and how they were affecting kids and stuff in schools and all this stuff. And I'm particularly sensitive to electromagnetic fields. I work with them all the time.
So am I.
And so I drove under one of those high power lines, and I was like, I mean, from like, I don't know, 1,000 feet before I hit it and 1,000 feet afterwards, it's like, whoa, that's crazy, right? And of course, nobody else, if they don't have that sensitivity. And so I was looking at that, and then I believe it was Tesla said, the amount of energy that flows in the field around a wire that has current flowing through it, and this is the key. If I flow 100 volts, like in your house through a copper wire, you have voltage flowing through. Like, let's say it goes through and powers your light or a little alternator or something, generator. But the field capture, to capture the energy in the field immediately surrounding that, can be like 4 times, 10 times as much energy. And like say you see those high power lines and you're looking at like, oh my God, if you threw a field capture around those. So what we built was something like say 2 palms around around the little alternator in your car. And, you know, those 2 palms are basically capturing that field energy, right? Now, once you capture it, you can dump it back into the circuit. And now, instead of it having to have, let's say, 100 volts flowing through it, you're dumping another 30 or 40. So you're not drawing that 100 volts from the source. You're only drawing maybe 30 volts or 40 volts. And so we've been working out the manipulation of that, the controls, and that was a big deal, by the way, because you're dealing with microcircuits and this, that, and the other. But if you think about it, we capture the energy of the field, and that's how you do it. But you need certain materials that don't create a feedback and dissonance, and it gets into a whole big deal, right? But it can be done, and we've done it. So if you think about it in other terms, though, think in human terms, have you ever been around what we call charismatics or movie stars or, you know, very popular people? They have a big electromagnetic field, and, you know, Mick Jagger shows up and 100,000 people want to be in that field because they want to draw energy from it. Right?
Yeah, people tell me all the time that they're drawn to my energy and they just want to be around me. My voice does something to people, heals people. Yeah. Please stay away from me. Don't come near me. I'm keeping my energy. It's mine, not yours.
Yeah, we call them energy vampires, right?
Well, there are genuine people who just like the auric field of somebody else because it feels good.
But what they're doing is they are drawing energy from your field.
Yeah.
And so we know that goes on with humans. Most people have the experience of it.
Yes.
And we're saying, if I have a little generator running and I put a field capture unit around it, it's like, how much energy do you want? And of course, we're now operating on what we call multiples. We're trying to multiply the output, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just drawing it from the field, the source field. I think one of the scientists said there's more energy in a cubic centimeter in void space or out in space. There's more energy in that. It's enough to power the world for, like, I don't know, a century or something.
Yeah.
And I probably have my numbers wrong, but if that's true, then that's what we're tapping into. And why wouldn't you tap into it? So anyway, that's the research and work I've done with it. And for everybody out there, it is possible. It's been done. So away you go. Right.
But it's not available because it's in Black Ops operations.
Oh, yeah.
Research facilities, off-world, on-world. I remember you and I were having a conversation, and you said anytime anybody builds a source field generator, the Black Ops people just come in and take it away and put it in a vault.
Yeah, what happens is it registers. Okay, if you fire up a big explosion or an earthquake, the people, there's all kinds of devices to pick that up, all kinds of sensors. Well, they also have sensors to pick up if you fire one of those up, because it's in some ways it's a field distortion device. And what that means is you distort the current reality field, and now you create a portal or an opening, and you're able to tap into that energy. That's proper language. And that's it. You're just tapping into it. Right now, it takes, let's say, 300 moving parts or 300 parts to it. But our goal is to get it down to like maybe 20 or 30 parts is all. Now, at that point, it would be pretty much available to everybody, right?
Yeah. But it's all about the paradigm shift and where the civilization is at, where it's going to be acceptable and the governments allow it and all that hoopla.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because it's what they call disruptive technology. Well, it's only disruptive to those people that are already making money out of buggy whips or Model A Fords, Mm-hmm. As soon as you introduce the new way of doing, all that goes away. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've seen that with Tesla, and we've seen it with computers, and it just gets. If you could ever introduce it, it just keeps getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as we advance on it. Yeah. And it's been around a long time. Oh, I mean, yes. If you look at some of the power generation events that occurred around the moon landings and things like that, there's definitely some technology they're not reviewing there, because you couldn't carry that much fuel if you do the equations. So so they're doing some other things.
Anti-gravity craft, all that good stuff. Yeah. It's from when I was on the Mars basis, it's called Planetary Corporations. They have the whole history of how they build underground modular bases in the 1950s, first on the mm-hmm. moon, and then created electromagnetic fields around domes on Mars, and there's bases inside those electromagnetic field domes. Right. And it prevents asteroids, space junk from hitting those electromagnetic dome fields. It keeps the bases safe.
Right.
So, I mean, all that information is in databases on holographic computers.
Right. I agree with you. And it's just like your own electromagnetic field or your etheric field. Your etheric field is your first layer of your energy field. And anybody, even kids, can find it. You just hold your palm over the back of your other hand and start gently raising it up, and you'll feel the temperature shift, the field shift. And usually it's around 2 inches. One of the things I did is create a supplement, and it increases your etheric field out to about 14 inches. And it's called 3 Kings X etheric supplement. And it's astounding, because you just have all this energy, but you have the energy because it's your own energy field. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're eating Snickers bar and drinking a Dr. Pepper or a double shot of espresso. It's just like, wow, you have energy to move on, right?
Yeah.
3 King's X etheric supplement. That's it. We just put that out. So
Yeah. And if I come near it, I just feel with my hands the energies of everything around
oh
me.
yeah, I do too. I mean, I can calibrate or discern somebody's energy field. I do it on the phone even. As soon as I have somebody's name, I can tell you exactly how big their energy field is and all kinds of other stuff, because all that information's available.
Yeah.
Right? You just tap in, so that we say there's no secrets.
No.
Right?
No.
So
You probably could tap into me, anybody else who you want,
yeah,
and just have a look. Although, if I
yeah,
try to energetically block you from doing it, you might not get in.
right, exactly. Yeah,
If
we can,
I'm,
we do that to protect ourselves.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we work on a client. I work on somebody to have a bigger energy field. If they have a bigger energy field, they'll heal themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need me. That's what I call it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But rearranging that and getting proper energy flow through the body, you're going to be healthy. You're going to be happy. You're going to be wealthy. You're going to be all those things.
Yeah.
And if you think about then being able to tap in the field for your energy now, it's just like the field capture we do on the around energy runs through a device. Well, energy runs through your body, and you create an electromagnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
And if you turn around and tap into your own electromagnetic field or into the source field, now you are like a dynamo, right?
Yeah.
And life is a lot different. So
you can levitate yourself. Sometimes people accidentally they tap so much into it, they levitate or they teleport somewhere where they're like, where am I? I was sleeping, that I'm
right.
5 towns away, 5 hours from somewhere else.
Right.
And
well, that's exactly that's exactly what happens when we move through space, but we don't move through all of it, or we move through time and we don't move through all of it. So all these things as space and time being fixed is just wrong.
But
right?
when we do this stuff, do we go beyond the speed of light?
Yeah, that's a ridiculous. It's kind of like it's a law for a certain reality, but it's just like if I said this timeline is speed of light, but there's other timelines, you know that.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, well, I should have freedom of choice to pick which timeline I want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And if we use that as an identifier, a timeline, and maybe in another timeline or another dimension or whatever you want to call those, then maybe there's a different law or different rule. And I always like, who wrote the laws of physics, right? Because every time we go from Newtonian to Einsteinian to quantum to subquantum and all the way up to null physics, which is at the top of the thing, it's like there's different rules. That's all. There's different applications, different ways to interact. That's it. There's no laws involved, right?
No.
But if you accept those laws, then you got to obey them. And that's the key. If you kick out the laws of physics, then you can go from here to there in a lot less time than normal. You can be somewhere else. And, the Tibetans knew this. They called it bilocation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to place your consciousness first and then kind of like have the body follow, right?
Yeah.
So you appear and reappear. Right?
The trick is to have a clean consciousness of decluttered of everything, so the mind is the sharp energy tool, and once it's clean and clear, it can just poof in and out and go wherever.
Yeah, the language I use for that I came up with is singularity of self, the singularity of consciousness. So it'd be the singularity of Randy or singularity of you, and that one pointedness allows you to move yourself all over the place, spatial wise, time wise, dimension wise, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah, it's like when people ask me, teach me astral travel, and they ask me, why?
Yeah, I hear that.
Why can't I leave my body? I hit walls, I hit windows. I'm like, well, you got to clear the clutter, and you have to allow your mind to to think I can leave the body, I can do it. If you're too analytical and if you're stuck in your body, you're not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's like it's an out of body experience. Your body will be fine. You're connected to your cord, energy cord. Let that body sleep, whatever. Just allow your energy, your soul energy, leave the body. If you can't go through the wall, too complicated, leave an open window for yourself and go through the window your first time. Walls are beyond you.
Like I say, you go from here to here. You don't even have to travel. That's it makes me smile because the same thing occurs in the techniques we were talking about, right? So, well, did we cover it?
Yeah. I tell people your physical reality, your windows and doors is just that. It's like a roadblock. Imagine it's not there and the possibility is endless, right?
Well, yes, because so much of what we have learned needs to be unlearned. It needs literally to be thrown out. Sometimes people say, how do you do this stuff? And I go, well, stop doing the stuff you were educated and programmed to do and do something different. And don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. That's the key, right? And just because they can't doesn't mean you can't. So I tell people, get busy with all this. Get busy playing with space or with time, because both of them can be manipulated. Both of them you are interactive with or can be. And then the world's a whole different place, right?
Yes, so, definitely.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Randy.
Yeah, that's very, very, very interesting to be able to talk to you, because this is so much beyond, like, people all the time, who can I talk to about this? And I go, well, I don't know many, because they're so closed-minded and so based in whatever physical reality they got going that they can't comprehend what it means to be able to be interactive in a much larger domain, much larger universe, right?
Well,
so,
I don't always play in this reality, and I venture off to different places and times. And so for me, I say to people, nothing is impossible and everything is possible. You just tap into what you want and you go get it. It's all there. It's all there. You just get into it, get it. Go
and
find
have
it.
Fun. Yeah, and have fun while you're doing it.
Yeah, explore. And it's like this. I tell people, look at it all in 365 degrees, not just one angle. Go look at all the angles.
Right, exactly. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It was, I understand what you're telling me, and it's a pleasure to talk to somebody who thinks outside the box.
Oh, yeah. I agree. It's definitely fun to talk to you. So I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.